Hi everyone, I'm Liz Rhodes.
And I'm Mitch Mahar.
And we're from
WhistlePig Whiskey.
And here's your craft, spirits, and distilling
Tip of the week. In terms of barrel selection for us, it actually does start in the fields, right? We do have our own farm here, and with that farm, we do have harvest variations. So year to year, we do have higher yields, lower yields, and then, granted, we make a pretty high quality rye grain here as well as malted barley and wheat, but there are definitely some years that are absolute, shooting stars, and some that are just, they hit our requirements for what we want to use as our base grain, but we'll still sort of talk back to like, well, do you remember the harvest of 2016 or so on and so forth. So that's actually where we start. So depending on the harvest that we've had the year before, we'll determine the barrel types that we use for our final spirit. And then just in terms of a more general approach, we definitely hang our hat on rye whiskey. And rye is a grain, although it can be sort of a labor of love in terms of mashing and in fermentation. In terms of spirit, it is big, it's bold, and it's ready to play. So I have a ton of versatility in terms of barrels I can choose to really showcase both the barrel itself and the rye grain. I don't really need to be afraid of the barrel overstepping the rye or vice versa. But I do need to have a more mild approach when it comes to wheat and barley, especially barley. Granted, I do love barley. It's near and dear to my heart. I spent years as a brewer, but with that, it definitely has a little bit more of a feathery quality to it, like a little lighter, a little more airy. So I can't, go into some of these more crazy exotic toasts, lest I just totally overrun all of the hard work we've done on the front end growing the barley to begin with. In terms of overall sort of cellaring and aging philosophies, there's a huge amount of talk in the distillation world about, do you really pull from barrels on high racks versus low racks, or do you want things that are on the aisle that have wind that move through it, or like I hear the south-facing wall of a distillery is, the best place to be. Some of that, there's definitely some truth to some of these things, and then there's some things that because we're so small, I don't know yet. So like, if, for instance, in Kentucky, we have huge talks about like, but the Rickhouse over on this side of the property versus this side because it's in a hill or this, that, the other. As I'm sure you've seen, or as you will see, we really have our one large barrel barn here. And so my variety in terms of Rickhouse placement is limited to one, but I do personally find there is a difference in terms of high to low and then airflow. But once again, there is such juxtaposition for us because I'm not just working with bourbon, I'm not just working with rye. I do have, it is rye, it is bourbon, it is wheat, it is single malt, and we talk about, other experimental grains all the time, but, stay tuned. With all of that variety, as well as the variety of cask placement, we are sort of discovering for ourselves and our climate, where's the best place to keep rye versus where's the best place to keep bourbon versus where's the best place to keep single malt. And then, with the cask we're laying down, we're continually exploring all of these things all the time. Personally, I do like, for lack of a better term, in my experience from my Rickhouse, about 3/4 of the way up, south-facing wall tends to be some of the best casks of rye you can have. But I've also had some really great aisle, base level of the warehouse barrels that have just been truly spectacular. But if I'm gonna pick one, I'll probably say not absolute top, close to top, south-facing walls, best for rye whiskey. To learn more about the WhistlePig Whiskey approach to rye whiskey,
click the link below.